So it's the kickoff, huh? We got a podcast, Chicago Hill kickoff. But we should let ladies go first. What you say, Mark?
Ladies first, white guy last.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know.
Ladies first. Well, I'm excited. This is the Chicago Hill podcast with Shawn K. And we've got with us Mark Pisakovic. Did I say it right, Mark? See, starting out perfect. I'm so excited. Ooh, I can't wait.
He's such a nice guy. He told you said it, he gave you a thumbs up and you said it wrong.
Oh,
that's so nice. That's mighty white of you, Mark.
I mean, with my last name, it's kind of hard to get it. It's always wrong, no matter what. It's like it's always too hot or too cold. It's just never right?
But you know what, Mark? I appreciate that. I think that's what society should be like. It shouldn't be, gotcha, you were wrong. You know, and then we'll find a way to say your name right, but you don't have to, you didn't have to tell her, nope, you got it wrong. And that's the way we should be, because she tried. And yeah, Meleika, that was very nice of you to even try. I think he appreciated it.
Absolutely. I think, at least Representative Ford was born with one great thing. It's four-letter last name. That's it's lucky.
Well, he's going to be Mark from here on out.
When I came to this country, I had to learn how to spell my last name in English. It took me like a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Meleika, finish telling us who you are and where you're from.
Who I am. I'm always more interested in who everyone else is, but I am Meleika. I am out of Evanston and started working with Rep Ford. What has it been, like 2 years now?
It's been about that length of time.
About 2 years. Yeah. Met you 2019, worked on legislation together. Pre-enslavement, Black history, and I was like, let me know when you want to do anything else.
Wait, you said enslavement? What you say?
Pre-enslavement.
Pre-enslavement. I can't wait. I know we're going to get into that one day on this podcast.
Yes.
But I don't understand. I mean, you're pretty light-skinned. You got fine hair and all that. You know, you would be.
I'm not light-skinned. I'm brown-skinned. Thank you.
I think we just got into black politics inadvertently.
Mark, have you ever heard these conversations? The light skin, brown skin, dark skin?
Yes, and I try to find a corner or behind a couch and hide as quickly as I can.
Okay.
when my black friends talk shade of skin color, I know situation could become volatile, and I just try to hide.
So you guys don't have different shades, Mark? You white people, y'all only got one shade. I mean, you got one shade?
It's called privileged Caucasian.
That's what we're gonna be talking about too. That white.
If it was at the paint store, that'd be the name of the color.
That's a good
privileged
one.
White.
Yeah.
Privileged white.
You know what? I think, hey Mark, let's Meleika, y'all, let's buy a horse and name it Privileged White. Privileged White coming around the turn.
And you have people understand he better not win. He better not win.
and then we'd have to run it against Black Lives Matter, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. That would be good. Black Lives Matter, white. Yes.
So horse race or the mayoral race in Chicago?
Hey, you know what? You probably can't tell the difference. But Meleika, that was great. It's so nice to kick off this Chicago Hill podcast. I'm LaShawn Ford, and I'm state rep. I've been state rep now for 15 years, and it's really a privilege to have people like you and Mark to work together and to help me be a legislator. You know, I mean, if you don't have people that you could count on and listen to, and they have patience, understanding the process, it's very difficult to be a legislator and get things done. And so I just say that the fact that I have the privilege to have you all as advisors is really great, because one, there are a lot of people that want things done and they want it done now. And they don't understand that it's a process to get things done. And I've talked to you, Meleika and Mark, about things that you really want now. But you guys say, you know what, this may not be the right time. We still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to work on it to get it where it's at. We're going to massage the people, educate the people, and maybe it'll be right next year, and maybe it won't. And for that, I just want to say thank you both. And I think that we can have a great podcast that will talk politics, that will talk life, that will talk race. I was going to say racism, but that we'll talk about race. And that's what we want. If we don't have a platform where people could talk freely and learn from one another, then we can't heal as a nation. And so with that said, I'm grateful to be on with you all, and we're going to turn it over to Mark.
Thank you. I am Mark Peysakhovich. You can pronounce it however you want. I've been called a lot worse. I live in Oak Park. I'm a lobbyist and consultant. I work primarily on issues in Springfield. And I guess within the context of this show, maybe I am an immigrant, a refugee who came here from another country, who I think has a little bit more empathy than your regular American-born white guy. Maybe I'll get into that at some point in greater detail. But for now, I guess I would just say, and you guys have heard me say before, I guess I have a name for people like myself. It's WM squared. That stands for well-meaning white man. With that, an acknowledgement that well-meaning doesn't always mean understanding, knowing, or right. And so I look forward to this dialogue.
It's going to be great. You guys, this is the first one, but you talk about healing. We should send out our condolences to all those suffering from mental health struggles. Just recently, there was believed to be a suicide of the former, or not former, but Miss America, is that right?
Miss USA.
Miss USA.
Mm-hmm.
And, from New York. She supposedly fell out of a high-rise building. That's a perfect sign that mental health is a serious problem in the world. I mean, beautiful lady, a lot going for her, but there's obviously was a struggle in her life. And, I think that we should all be sensitive to the fact that people may have some things going on in their life and not ignore the fact that people are human. I think that we could be so hard on people, hard on individuals, and that's tough. We have to be aware, and the more and more we see people dying of suicide, it should be a constant reminder that we should be kind to our brothers and sisters.
And I don't want to interrupt too much, but I got to cut in with the standard, but still very important. If you are, or somebody you know is contemplating suicide, you're not wrong, and you're okay, and you can be helped. And the number to call is 1-800-273-8255, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-8255.
And Chesley, Miss USA, when you go back and you look at her videos, her posts, you would have never thought in a million years that she was in any sort of pain. I mean, she just came off just so vibrant and full of energy and life. She had just done an interview with Denzel Washington. She was just doing amazing things out there, and absolutely she just seemed like a beautiful spirit. And usually with public figures, you see some sign of it on their social media. They'll make these posts, when it gets closer to that day. And with her, you just didn't see any, you didn't see any of that. But her last post, she did say something about having peace. And she posted this beautiful photo of herself. And you just never know what a person is going through. So it's just best to be kind
Yeah.
to everyone.
Meleika, thank you for saying her name. Let's do a real, what's her name again? Because I said before.
Chesley.
Chesley, okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that this is, it's most fitting that this show is dedicated to her, so that her life is one that will help save someone else. And Mark, thanks for giving that 1-800 number out. That means that wherever you live in America, you could call that number. Mark, you also lobby for a mental health groups. Is that right?
That's right. I'm the lobbyist for the Illinois Psychiatric Society. So I represent the psychiatrists in Illinois. But one of the reasons why that is so important to me is I'm not just a lobbyist, I'm also a client. As I've mentioned, I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 10 years old. Got beat up in first grade in the bathroom of my school in Moscow for being a Jew. And came here with some PTSD. And the older I get, the more the mind comes back and tries to process what happened decades ago. And so my own therapy, my own mental health treatment, my own psychiatrist is an important part of my overall healthcare system. And it's something I take very seriously. There is no health without mental health. There is no separation between mental health and physical health. And, that manifests itself all the time. Look at Alzheimer's, just as an example, okay? Is that mental health or physical health? Yes, it's all of the above. And so I'm delighted to represent the psychiatrists. I think that they are an important part of the overall mental health system. But you can talk to a lot of people. You don't have to talk to a psychiatrist. You can talk to a school counselor. You can talk to a nurse. You can talk to a doctor, talk to a friend, a parent. I find that a lot of times, if I can just get something out or verbalize it, it actually helps me a lot with my own coping.
Yeah, a lot of people don't take time to work on their mental health, their healing. What do we say, LaShawn? We don't have time.
You know what, Meleika's got a very, very good understanding of this as well. And we continue to talk about it, Mark, Meleika, and myself, that you have to take time. Meleika, we've been talking to a young man that lost his daughter here in Chicago. A young man's daughter was shot in the head on 4th of July on the west side of Chicago, celebrating and playing with her family and friends. And the man actually told us, and of course, Meleika probably is going to say his name, and because she's good like that. And
Nathan Wallace.
Yep. See, and so he said he went to the store, and within minutes, his baby was shot. And he had to go back to work within 2 days because he has 3 other babies, Meleika?
3 other children.
Babies, 3 other children that he's got to take care of, one with autism. And so, our society definitely needs some healing. And I think it starts with just being kind to one another and recognizing that in your pain, there are other people that share it too,
Yes, I couldn't believe in that story that his employer, he was working 2 jobs at the time that it happened, that his employer would not give him paid bereavement time. I mean, his daughter was just murdered, and 2 days later you make him come to work, and he had to go to work because he's got 3 other children. So he's the example of not having time to heal and get that help. And he needs it. He definitely needs it. I mean, that's like a hole ripped in your soul, and he needs
I
to
mean, you're
talk to
right.
someone, but he
How
has
about-
to keep going. He has
and
to keep
look,
going. He
how
has to
about
stay
his
in
family?
motion and survive.
His family? What about the sisters and the mother and everyone in the community
Mhm.
that saw the tragedy play out? The whole community is experiencing trauma, and
Yes.
how do we deal with this?
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm thinking a lot more and more about when we think about violence, particularly in communities that are poor economically. One of the things that I don't think we think about is the fact that it's like living in Vietnam or like living in Afghanistan.
I agree.
And one of the things that, sort of as a white guy who grew up in quiet middle class neighborhoods, I never had to deal with was a lot of my, school friends getting killed or cousins getting killed. And so one of the things that I don't think we think about enough, and I always sort of wondered whether you can inherit trauma. More and more, I believe that you can, that it stays in the cells of your body, that it gets transmitted, and that the inherited trauma. Yeah, you know what I like to say? I like to say, if folks inherited as much money as they did trauma, we'd be a
Oh,
lot better off, wouldn't we?
man.
But the
Mhm.
legacy is trauma, and that legacy gets passed on and on and on and intensifies. And frankly, there's got to be amazing resiliency of folks who see that violence, that trauma around every day, and can still go on,
And
like
look,
the guy who went to work.
right, and we're talking that's big trauma. Just think about the other trauma that he's been going through with poverty. Poverty
Mhm.
is something that constantly inflict trauma on you. If you are a male or parent, right, Meleika, and
Yes.
you can't take care of your kids and you see them struggling, that's trauma.
Mhm. Mhm. So, we have economic violence, we have gun violence, and I know, my family, we've experienced uh, a lot of loss due to murder, gun violence. And my mother, I remember a therapist told my mother, he was like, you haven't had time to grieve or mourn. And she was like, I have two children. I don't have time. I don't have time to heal or mourn or grieve. I have children to take care of. I have to keep going. But eventually that pain catches up with you. It has a way of resurfacing, usually at the most inopportune time in your life, usually when your career is great.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're freaking out and things start to crumble because you haven't dealt with these old emotions. But trauma is deep, and that economic violence we definitely will be tackling on
Yeah,
Chicago Hill.
and something else, Meleika, I think we definitely will talk about what inherent trauma that Mark talked about. We talked about this in some chats with some at some other shows, but we never talked about it on the podcast. But we've had some people come on that psychologists, psychiatrists talk about trauma that's passed on. And I
Mhm.
would just say one other thing that we have to remember: if you're poor, it's almost unaffordable and it's a luxury to heal, right? We talked to someone, if you're poor, you just have to keep on ticking
Mhm.
and you really don't have the luxury to heal.
You don't have any extra rope. There's no margin for error. And that's a terrible thing when there's no margin for error in life, when there isn't a margin for some food if you don't work for a few days or things like that. And you know what? I think part of the problem is, and maybe at some point we'll have to talk about solutions and not just problems, but I think part of the problem is that there's sort of fewer and fewer people in the middle, right? You're either experiencing trauma and have very little to fall back on, or you're wealthy and your trauma is of a different sort. Now, just because you're wealthy doesn't mean you're inherently less likely to have mental health issues, but you are inherently less likely probably to have inherited the genetic trauma of people who watched their relatives being whipped and lynched and beaten and enslaved. And so this is what I mean. If you start from less than zero, you got to get to zero before you can get to positives. And we got to do something, because right now you're either a millionaire or you got nothing. And there's less and less and less and less in the middle.
Well, I think that one of the things that I would say, and just speaking for myself, I know that I've been through a lot. And if I didn't have resources and family, people to love me, people that I could talk to, it could be rough. And so just the fact that I'm able to feed my child, my daughter, and able to not worry about where I'm going to sleep, not worry about whether or not I could go see a doctor, that's helpful. Now, imagine if I didn't have that blessing and I still had to deal with all the trauma that I've gone through in life. That's that short rope that you're talking about.
Well, and I actually wonder about you, Representative Ford, because I think resiliency should be your middle name. I mean, if there was ever a guy who was beaten down by life, whose birth mother had been a lifelong drug addict,
Yeah.
raised by grandmother. And one of the things that I love about you is that you and I are both open about talking where our trauma comes from and how we're dealing with it. But, you know, when I talk about you, I've been a proud constituent for a long time, by the way, not for much longer, but I assume we'll still stay friends. But if there was ever a guy who could have been beaten down by life, and even now you're a state representative, you get accolades and you get praise, but I'm sure every other, post on Facebook can be acerbic, can be critical. You always got people who are saying good things and bad things, and you got to deal with both. How do you deal with what are the tools that you, I mean, I know now you're a state rep, you got everything you need more or less. Although anybody who thinks being a state rep makes you rich is wrong. It's not a bad gig, but it's definitely not for millionaires either. But how do you deal with sort of what life has dealt you and the sort of the offenses against you every day, as it were?
Yeah, personal offenses, personal attacks against my family, friends, even, and I never told you to, but the man, I never met my biological father, but the man that actually was the man in my life actually committed suicide too. He slit his wrist, and that was during, right when I got elected. So that's trauma. Our family, the man that we love actually committed suicide, and families will often wonder, could we have done something to help him with his struggles? And, how do I deal with it? I stay prayerful, and I understand every day I learn life better and better. I know no good deed goes unpunished. And there is no doubt I will be grateful for the opportunity to breathe again and to try to be more better as a person. No matter what you do to me, I'm going to turn the cheek like Dr. King and just keep on ticking and love you no matter what. I think that's the only way. I don't let what a person is doing to me fester in my soul and spirit, because that's poison, and so I think that we're about to wrap up too. And I know Meleika, you guys, and Mark, I hope you give that number again, because it's a powerful number. And I hope that we could continue to do this podcast and be a friend to many as we share our stories and do what we can to be a part of a good society.
Most
The
definitely.
National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Use it if you need it. You're not a bad person if you do. Thanks for having me with you guys. So I'm looking forward to great conversations.
Yes, yes. And I wanted to add, I have seen Rep. Ford in hearings go up against some very evil people who are not about equality, equity, inclusiveness, diversity. And I look at him in amazement because I'm like, how do you deal with these people and still work with them and still have a great relationship with them? And you know to their core that they don't like you. And so I have learned.
You're absolutely right. They don't like you. That's okay. It's not about you liking me. I'm gonna make you love me.
Right. You fight for what's right. And I truly believe the good ends up winning
Yeah.
in
So
the end. Yes.
that's it. That's all, folks. See you guys next time.
All right.